Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, what have we got today? We have got the Rattan Vipers, the sort of mid-tier archer unit that was released, just a week or so ago. And this is kind of what I've been really focusing on, these Rattan Vipers, because they kind of intrigued me a lot straight away from the beginning, and that's kind of what I wanted to look at. So I've been playing these kind of a little bit. I've just got them elited because I really wanted to get to their end veterancy line. So let's take a little bit of a look at them. First off the offer, I actually kind of like them. The unit attire, the model that they kind of look like. At first I wasn't so keen, but it's grown on me a little bit, and I actually quite like them now. But anyway, they are a 3-star unit. They, I think, are 7,500 honour to unlock. Plus, you've got to go through the pikemen and up through the some of the tech tree upgrades as well to get to them, middle tree. And if you want to be ultimately pushing onto the mounted crossbows like I do, you need to be getting the improved quivers to level 5 out the other side. And sort of to touch on briefly on this now, it's kind of worth having. Ammunition capacity does feel a little bit low at the start, and kind of adding another 30% to that is quite significant. So, for me, improved quivers is kind of worth having, particularly if you're going to push onto the mounted crossbows anyway. So, what kind of makes these guys unique? Why was I interested in them? Well, it's because they are focused around poison damage. You can see here, poisoned weapons. So the only other unit to this is the mercenary, the black forest archers, something like that. Black dragon archers, that's the ones. And this is kind of the second poison archer unit we've had in, but it's kind of been implemented a little bit differently. Because once we go to the veterancy bonuses, you'll see if you go down the bottom line, which is going to be the line you want to go down, it starts to introduce some interesting concepts. So, first off, we get higher chance of inflicting bonus hits. A bit non-descriptive. I think that means either critical or more poison damage. Then, if we look down here, you'll see target may take sustained poison damage. That means that's the first level where you're going to start getting a ticking poison damage. So, you hit an enemy with an arrow, they get the 1,000 hit damage for the arrow, and then they take, say, 100 damage per second from the poison. Then we get targets may be slowed from this unit. So when they get hit by an arrow, they now get a chance to slow down. So when you start shooting, say, a unit of pike militia or something that's charging your archer unit, and you're starting to put sort of 30, 40 arrows out every couple of seconds, then you actually really start to slow that unit down. So it gives your archers more time to get their damage in. Then we keep going along, 4 more soldiers, a bit of extra damage, whatever. Then we get the poison effect can stack up to 5 times. So in effect is what that means. If you're shooting, say, a smaller unit, say, what would be a good smaller unit? I was going to say Reapers, Iron Reapers, but it's probably not the best example, but let's take them. Every time you hit them, you're going to apply the damage of the arrow, which given the armor value is going to be very low, maybe 200, something like that. But then you're also going to apply that 100 per tick poison damage. Then if you shoot them again, instead of just resetting that poison damage, because nothing stacks in this game, it is actually going to allow the poison damage to start stacking. So if you shoot 5 arrows into one Reaper, they're going to be taking about 500 damage per second just from the poison. Well, if you keep that fire up, then you can see how kind of that amount of damage is going to rack up quite quickly. So it's kind of a counter in some ways to higher tier units, because even though the initial per tick seems quite low, when it starts to stack like that, and particularly when you start to shoot at a concentrated group, then the damage is actually going to start to pick up quite quickly, sort of over a period of time, and that's what made them interesting to me. Combined with that fact, you only actually have to be level 11 to get this, which is actually really not too high, and then you'll see that you can push down the other tech tree all the same, because you can get them up to level 16, so you can still get the increased ammo, the increased piercing damage, and you can actually get the increased weapon range by 10 meters. I'm not down to level 16 yet, I'm still level 11, but that's going to make things a little bit better as well, so I'm glad you can still unlock that. Shame you can't get right to the very end, but, understandable. But that's kind of a nice little upgrade nonetheless. So anyway, let's hop into a bit of a battle with them and kind of see how we get on. They are quite a nice unit. I quite like them. They're not amazing. They're not prefecture archers, but I quite like them. So let's hop into a battle and see how we do. So we are into battle. Initially, I started off, I was kind of just playing around with the cannons and stuff and blasting away at some of the enemies, so I've not shown that. But then I left these guys on the stairs, and kind of one of the disappointments of these guys is their range. I left them on the stairs kind of thinking they would be able to shoot at anything that came through the gateway, and as it turned out they couldn't. You can see those units disappearing into the distance, they didn't actually shoot at. So their range, I think because I've got so used to prefecture archers and just having sort of that slightly bugged amount of range, you know, hitting up sort of even almost as long as longbows, kind of makes them a bit silly. So I started to play a bit aggressive. They go for the charge. They're a little bit too far to the right of me, and you can see, I know they're only a peasant unit, really not much of a challenge, but they just get cut down pretty quickly. None of them, I think they may have got one hit, but it didn't really do any significant damage to the unit. And the arrows do a decent amount of damage, particularly on lower tier units or lesser armoured units. I find them to be quite effective. I think one of their biggest problems against higher tier units, as you'll notice, is even though they do well on the poison damage, they don't do so well in terms of actual arrow damage, because their armor penetration, even with running a doctrine, is around about 800 piercing AP, and that's not really enough to penetrate most armors, other than sort of low to medium tier units. And because they don't quite have the volume of fire of like prefecture archers, they struggle more to overcome that a little bit, I find. But they do kind of make up with the poison damage. So you'll see here, so the arrows coming in. So they don't fire every arrow as poison damage. If you look, you'll notice there's different coloured arrows. Some are white or clear, or whatever you want to call it, and they're just normal arrows. And then the green represent the poison arrows. So it kind of works differently to, say, like the Black Dragon Archers, which have an option to turn poison on for 5 seconds, you know, every 60 seconds. These guys shoot poison all the time, but only about, you know, I think around 40% of the arrows they shoot are poisoned. At least that's kind of what I think. Even you pick up your own idea from the arrow trails, kind of get what you think. I think sort of 40%, something like that. So they do a pretty decent amount of poison arrows, and they put them out continually. The rate of fire isn't too bad. I've not found it to be too disappointing so far, although obviously risking everything coming back to prefecture archers, they're not that level. So anyway, we get a little bit of damage in. We killed those guys at the gate initially, and then we push up and we kind of help drive back that assault up the siege tower. And for that, they're quite good. They've got a good few kills doing that, and they do damage. You know, they're not a completely useless arch unit in that sense. Their damage output is pretty reasonable. So I sent them back to the supply point to go and get some more arrows, get a bit more ammunition, and I noticed, if you can see on the minimap, there's a really big push coming along through the gate down the bottom. So I kind of wanted to drag them back up again, kind of still start to get them back into combat. So they're coming back up. You can see, again, I get a bit surprised here about the range. It's a little bit shorter than I was expecting. I keep thinking I'm going to easily be able to shoot in that, and that's not the case. So I decided to bring them up. I've been getting on quite well playing pretty aggressively with them, because, as I say, that range is a bit short. They're not... Oh, that peasant just got absolutely annihilated, poor guy. As I say, but yeah, because their range is a bit short, they're not super accurate, so they kind of work a little bit better at close range, in my opinion. And as you can see, everyone there who's sort of got that little toxic smoke around them, they're currently suffering from poison damage, so they're getting a poison tick. So as you can see, they do quite a bit of damage. And then we get charged from behind by a unit of pike militia. And I was quite pleased with how they dealt with this. The pike militia did everything right, in the sense that I wasn't paying attention. They got back and managed to basically rush up to the back of my arch unit without me looking. And the arch unit was still able to turn around and put the damage on, and only took 1 death. And I know pike militia, you know, well, they are a great unit, but they're not great against archers. But still, you know, a combination of that slowdown on the veterancy line is really very helpful. And I think that sort of combined with the amount of damage they do against lighter units, particularly with the poison and stuff, made them really quite effective in that sort of situation. So anyway, that went down, and then I sort of pull back onto the wall because I see we're starting to get threatened. I'm trying to help clear the way back to A, and we start to get to damage in these. I'm not quite sure what level of muskets these are. I think they're something like tercios, something like that. You can see we get a good amount of damage here. We don't really get too many kills, but you can see even as they move off out of my range, they're still getting that continual sort of ticking damage from poison for a bit. I then have to use sort of my guided fire to try and keep the fire on, and we do start to get a few kills on them, but it would have been nicer. Then we get rushed by this spear. You see sort of the amount of damage he takes. Lost about half his health there. Unfortunately, he turned his back to me. He's obviously, I get criticals with the ultimate, and then as we get charged by these peasants, you can see we're hitting for sort of 1,000 or so, or critting about 2,000 when we hit them, and then with the ticking poison damage, they obviously go down pretty quickly. Fortunately, we get trebbed. You can see a couple of times I'm trying to drag the unit out the way. I'm trying to quickly tell them to go back to get out of the way of the treb, but it didn't quite work. I think I must have been trying to drag them to the wrong spot, and it didn't actually get them to move. But we actually lost just less than half the unit. Still got 20 guys left, and that is something that is worth noting of this unit. It's a 36-man unit. It's not a small unit. They do pretty well for numbers, and that means you can kind of afford to take a few losses, and you're still a relatively decent strength unit. At this point, I was healing up because I did get really quite low. And then with a couple of seconds left, I didn't think there was anything realistically I was going to be able to do to help aid there. And I decided the best thing to do, given we were sort of under 7 minutes at this point, was to pull back to the supply point and try and actually make a little bit of a stand there. I'm not normally a fan of trying to defend this supply point, but I felt we'd held A for long enough that we were kind of playing for ultimate delay now. And it kind of was worth trying to sort of throw my life away, or the unit's life away, trying to hold this supply point. So we pull back. And I kind of get myself set up into position, kind of there. Although we're getting pretty low on ammo, so it's kind of nice to get them a little back. They start to fire out a few arrows on some of the people to get close. And we start to get pushed pretty hard, pretty quickly by some of the enemy units, which kind of caught me out a little bit. I didn't think they were going to actually try and keep the momentum going quite like that. And then they sort of seem to stop a little bit on the edge. I wish at this point I directed their fire a little bit better, because obviously they naturally just shoot at the nearest unit to them. If you just leave them to do anything, they don't go and target the archers, say, at the back. Look, if I'd been able to target the archers in the back now, or particularly those muskets, I think we'd be able to do a lot more damage, but unfortunately I didn't. I got a bit caught up in the moment and ended up just going on to fight. And you see, as I start to get shot by those same muskets I wish I'd taken out with my archers, my health starts to diminish. Realise I'm getting pretty low. Try to go a bit defensive. Trying to block. Tried to knock the musket over so he couldn't get me, but he managed to actually hit me with the butt of his musket, I think. And unfortunately, that is me dead. The archers fight on for a little bit longer. You can see some of the hits going in there on the end. But that pretty much spells the end of that game for that unit for me. We did go on to win the game, which was kind of nice. But that's kind of what I wanted to point out with just how this unit works. And we ended up, I think I got just over 70 kills with those Rattan Vipers there. They are a nice unit. They're a 3-star unit, so I think you have to limit your expectations to some extent. They're never going to be amazing. They're not longbowmen, they're not prefecture archers, and they're never going to come close to that, I don't think. But I think they are better than many archers out there. I think once you get the plus 10 meter range upgrade, that will be nice, because I think it will take them from 80 to 88 meters range, something like that, which will be quite a nice add-on. That's something they need. And I think that will kind of make a bit of a difference. I think they could have done with more armor-piercing damage. I think if their armor-piercing damage was 1,000, not 800, I think you would see their damage potential against higher-tier units really start to skyrocket. You could, in theory, go up that top line you saw at the beginning, because there's a 15% AP increase there. But I think the poison damage stacking bonuses and stuff like that you'll lose. Particularly things like the slowing and the stacking poison. Wouldn't be worth it. So I think going down the bottom line is kind of the way to go. So overall, are they a unit worth getting? I think they are. I think they're worth the unit worth going through. They're an interesting unit. I don't think they're the greatest unit ever though. So that's kind of my they're okay if you wanted an opinion on them. But obviously for me, I really wanted to go to the mounted crossbows. If you're going to be going to the mounted crossbows, I would buy these though, and because you've got to unlock them. I would buy them and give them a go because they are quite a fun little unit. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully that was interesting. If it was, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.